Howdy, everyone. My name is Mojola.
And my name is Isaac. Welcome back to the L2 stage.
All right. Yeah, we're in the home stretch now, but we still have a lot in store for you.
First up, we have a story of transforming data into a sense of urgency, empathy, and a call to act for our planet's future. Please give a warm welcome to Serinda and Luke.
Our world today is obsessed with data. We need more data for our AI models, our dashboards, our data-driven decisions. But the uncomfortable truth is, having more data doesn't matter if we can't make sense of it. Because if we can't make sense of it, we won't care about it. And if we don't care about it, we're not going to act on it.
We found ourselves at the center of this when we challenged ourselves to make sense of 300 gigabytes of raw climate data. Data informs, but stories inspire. It's stories that move people. And that's the gap we needed to close. Today, we are going to show you exactly how we found the story in 300 gigabytes of climate data, step by step. And we will give you a framework you can actually take back to your own work.
First, some quick intros. So my name's Luke, and for the last decade, I've worked as an engineer making complex systems legible to people. From payment systems at Google to simulation for autonomous vehicles at Waymo, and most recently, data visualization for the Mars rover team at NASA. Different domains, but the same problem every time. We had an enormous amount of data, and somewhere inside it was a decision that a human actually needed to make.
Hi, I'm Serinda. I'm a UX designer, most recently at Tesla. Before that, I spent several years in a digital consultancy, helping organizations navigate complex systems. From automating agricultural workflows in Thailand to improving how hospitals in the US manage blood inventory. Across every project, my focus has been the same, turning complexity into clarity and transforming data and workflows into experiences where people know what to do next. Luke and I met at Harvard, researching shifting ecosystems and climate change. But more than anything, we consider ourselves storytellers. And that lens is everything in what we are about to show you.
So here's where our research actually started. We had 300 gigabytes of climate data from NASA. Precipitation and temperature projected every 20 years until the year 2100. And when we stare at it, it's just a bunch of numbers. So we found ourselves asking the same questions you face with any data set. Where is the story here? Who is this data for? And why should anybody care?
So, how do you find a story? We figure out that it comes down to 5 things, 5 elements of data storytelling. And we are going to walk through all 5 of them, using our research as the live example. And then we will show you how you can use them too. So, for the first element, first question we ask ourselves, where does this story take place?
I'm from the Pacific Northwest, and the Cascade Mountains were in my backyard. So when we were sitting on all of this global climate data, I kept on getting pulled back home. So that's why we started here. For those of you unfamiliar, this is Mount Rainier. It's the tallest peak in the Cascades and the most prominent landmark in the range. And it made a natural place for us to focus because Mount Rainier anchors an entire ecosystem. The elevation, the climate, the species that live on its slopes, they're all shaped by this mountain. So everything we're about to show you takes place right here. This is the world that our story lives in.
So, diving into this area, here's what some of the NASA climate data looks like in this context. We can begin to understand where the landscape may become hotter, wetter, or drier by the year 2100. These maps tell us what's changing, but still, not why we should care. Now, we have our first element, the setting. This is probably the most obvious step. Context makes data readable instantly. Now, we have a world, but a world with no one in it. It's just a landscape photo. So look, should we bring someone into this?
I think we should. So that brings us to our second element, character. Because every good story needs a protagonist. With our world established, the question then became, who is affected here? We wanted something unique to this environment, something whose story was tied directly to all of this climate data we were holding, something whose story hadn't really been told before. Drum roll, please.
Meet Pika, a small mountain-dwelling mammal that lives in the Cascades. They're a great choice for this research because they're a climate indicator species. This means that they are highly sensitive to climate change. In the Pika's case, they live in cool alpine environments, and even slight warming can threaten their survival.
And they're also very cute. So where do pikas actually live in our setting? We found data on where pikas have been spotted over the last 30 or so years. And we combined this species location sample data with historical precipitation and temperature data to train a machine learning model on where a pika is likely to be found based on the given climate. Then we took this 300 gigabyte of climate data, the projections for precipitation and temperature through the year 2100, and we reverse engineered what locations a species is likely to be found based on the habitat model, defining a predicted habitat for our pika. With this approach, we were able to turn this species location data into this predicted habitat map. It tells us where the pikas are likely to be found.
And so that's our second element, our character. And the takeaway, ask yourself, who is affected by this data? Now, we have a world, we have a character living in it. But a single frozen moment can't show climate change. Look, back to you again. What do we need next?
We need plot, or what changes over time. Time is what transforms a snapshot into consequence. If your data only shows a static view, then you're leaving a really powerful component on the table.
Back to the data that Luke mentioned a bit earlier. NASA gives us climate projections for every 20-year interval through 2100, which allowed us to create predicted habitat maps for each of these intervals. And when we overlaid these habitat maps on the terrain, something striking emerged. Watch this. The habitat is changing. It's shrinking, concentrating. Something is happening here, and we can somehow start to see the trend.
But actually, we found that this is only one side of the story. It's only when we looked at our data from a different perspective that we could see the full picture of what was happening. So let's watch this again from this new perspective. So now we can see that the pika's habitat isn't just shrinking, it's climbing. The pikas are moving to higher altitudes as the climate warms. So for us, this three-dimensional view is a design choice that supports the story we're trying to tell. We want to see our character interact with its setting over time. So that's our third element, plot. And the takeaway for all of you is make time visible. A static view hides cause and effect. Make sure you're showing changes and consequences.
Now, it's time to move to the fourth element, conflict. Of course, no story works without tension. A protagonist without an antagonist is just someone having a nice day.
The pika doesn't live in isolation, so we studied it in the context of its ecosystem. The pika eats specific grasses. It's hunted by specific predators. So we asked, what happens to the rest of this system? We developed a habitat model for each connected species. And that gave us something you can't see from one species alone, how the loss of a single habitat can put an entire ecosystem at risk.
Here's the habitat for one of the Pika's key food sources. Watch how it spreads across the landscape through 2080, but then shrinks by the year 2100. And here's the fox, the Pika's predator. While the Pika is shrinking, the range of the fox expands as the climate changes. But by the year 2100, its habitat disappears as well. What happens when the Pika shrinks, the fox disappears, and the ecosystem around you begins to break down? That's conflict. And we will see exactly how these layers interact when we bring everything together.
So that's our fourth element, conflict. And the takeaway is a single metric gives you a shallow insight. Connected relationships are what give you a story. So make sure you're thinking in systems and consider the systemic implications both inside and outside your data set.
Lastly, good stories don't just end. You take away something from them. They teach you, inspire you to act, and make you wonder, what's next? That's why our final element is call to action.
Let's go back to our data one last time. So this NASA predicted precipitation and temperature data, it doesn't represent just one future. It actually represents several possibilities based on potential climate scenarios that are officially called shared socioeconomic pathways. You can think of them as a fork in the road where each path represents a different possibility for how humanity tackles climate change. All the data that you've seen visualized so far is for our planet's current trajectory. And this here is the Pika habitat for the current trajectory in the year 2100.
And this is the worst case, where we increase our carbon emissions even further. And this is the best case, where we limit global warming to the fullest extent. Remember, they are all built from the same landscape, the same data, and the same place. The only thing that changes is the choice we make. Which future becomes reality depends on what we do today. Our data now serves as an inspiration for researchers, scientists, and concerned citizens.
And that includes all of our new Pika enthusiasts in the audience, right?
I think so. And so that's our final element, call to action. Leaving your data's audience with a reason to care and a desire to act.
So now we've got all 5 elements. Let's do a quick recap. We've got setting, character, plot, conflict, and call to action. Now we're going to show you the tool that we built and show how all of these elements come together into a cohesive digital experience.
All right, first, here's the setting. At the center is Mount Rainier.
Second, we've got character. This is the Pika's preferred habitat.
Now add plot. A timeline gives you the ability to explore how the habitat will change.
Now we show conflict. Here we've added selectors for different species, enabling comparison of habitats across the entire ecosystem.
And last but not least, call to action. Here we give people a way to explore different futures, compare outcomes, and see what might happen next.
All right, so here's our tool live in action. Now you can see that the tool is telling a story about the Pika and its ecosystem, about how all of the habitats shift as the climate changes over time. The tool answers many questions, but it also opens new ones that invite further research. And those questions are the ones you'd never even think to ask, staring at that original spreadsheet. The 5 elements of data storytelling are what helps surface these questions.
The goal isn't to help people see more data. It's to help them understand what it means, why it matters, and what might happen next. And that's the lesson. Design the experience, not just the visualization. Everything you have just seen, we built around one small mammal and a mountain. But this doesn't apply only to the Pika or climate change.
We found that the same 5 elements apply anywhere that people need to make decisions from complex information. We're going to show you 2 examples where we've applied the 5 elements in our own work.
First, it helps me rethink my US blood inventory system research project. Currently, the US healthcare system is highly fragmented. Each hospital operates on their own, and the data is floating everywhere, from spreadsheets to PDF reports and dashboards. But when a blood shortage happens, people don't look for more data. What they need is clarity on what to do next. And that's where storytelling became useful. We started with the setting at the transfusion unit in hospitals. Our characters were blood technologists, people who manage blood inventory every single day. The plot followed blood as it moved through the system. The conflict was balancing between blood shortages and waste. And call to action was helping hospitals make better decisions on how blood is being collected, shared, and used. Different domain, same storytelling framework. At the end, all the data didn't change. What changed was how people understood it. We turned raw, scattered information into a story, helping hospitals recognize shortages earlier, coordinate resources faster, and reduce waste before it actually happened. Because when data becomes a story, people know what to do next.
The 5 elements also shaped how I approach my data visualization work at NASA. So every day, the Perseverance rover sends a flood of information from Mars to Earth. And every day, the operators on Earth have a critical question to answer. What do we do today to keep the rover moving tomorrow? The data is all there, but finding the answer in it is the hard part. And that's where storytelling really helped. So we started with our setting, which was the surface of Mars. Our character was the rover. The plot was the telemetry, software logs, and imagery getting transmitted back from every day of driving. Conflict occurred when the rover got stuck due to a subsystem failure or an environmental challenge. And the call to action was figuring out what the team on Earth should do to get the rover moving again. Different planet, same framework. In the end, the data didn't change. What changed was how the operators understood it. We managed to turn a wall of data into a story, one that let operators understand what the rover saw, find what changed, and then act on it.
2 completely different domains and different planets, but the same 5 elements. Now, it's your turn. The next time you are staring down a dataset that's too big to feel like anything, these are the 5 things to reach for.
First, setting. Context is what makes a number mean something, so make sure you build it on purpose.
Second, character. Find your protagonist. Ask who is affected, not just what data you have.
Third is plot. A snapshot doesn't move anyone. Make sure you're showing how things change over time because that's where consequences live.
Fourth, conflict. Nothing in your data exists alone. Map what connects to what, because the tension shows up in the relationships, not in any single metric.
And lastly, call to action. Don't just show people what happened, show them the choices in front of them and what each choice leads to. In summary, this is the playbook to take home with you. 5 elements for finding the story in any data set.
We found a way to make 300 gigabytes of raw climate data into a story that people could see, feel, and connect with to make it matter. Because when people care about the story, they care about the data behind it. And if you felt something for our Pika today, then we have done our job. So wherever your next dataset takes you, find your Pika, build your world, tell your story. Thank you.